Hey guys, welcome back. We are going to go over yet another shard from Armies of Myth, and this evening we're going to go over the Ruby shard. One thing I've noticed, the more I go through these, the more notes I take about a particular card, so hopefully this one doesn't take too long. I'm hoping it doesn't anyway. I know they keep getting longer. The first one I did was 30 minutes for Blood. Diamond was 36 minutes, so let's try to keep this one nice and short around that half-hour mark for y'all. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the Extra Life stream that's going on right now that started last night. Hopefully you guys have been able to maybe participate in some of the stream giveaways, or whatever it may be. Maybe you've donated a little bit, this, that, and the other thing. So congratulations to all those guys that are making that possible. I applaud them greatly. Thank you very much. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get on with the Ruby shard review here. The first one we're going to start with is Cerberus. I don't know how you want to pronounce him anyway. He's a three-headed dog. He's pretty big and nasty, whatever there. But anyway, it's a 5 cost, double ruby threshold. He's a 1/4. He's got Crush and Rage 1. This one deals triple damage. I do like this because it is triple damage. So basically, he's going to, if he didn't have Rage 1, he's going to deal 3 damage. But he didn't have Rage 1, so he's going to go 2. So he's going to be a 6/4 for 5. Nothing you can complain about that at all. He is 5 cost, double threshold. Not really a big deal. He is going to be a great limited card for sure. I would not say this will not find its way to constructed somewhere in some deck. Whether or not it'll be in tier 1, it seems like a lot of the tier 1 cards are a little bit lower in cost than these, and not many of them are double threshold. But again, he's a 5 cost 6/4 basically is what you got. So I think it's a great card all in all. So next one we got here is Sunsoul Phoenix. Sunsoul Phoenix is a 6 casting cost, 2 ruby threshold. He's a 4/2. He's got flight and speed. And his card text reads, while this is in your hand, this has cost -2 for each action you've played this turn. He also has a basic action on him for 2 ruby thresholds. While this is in your graveyard, void 6 actions from your graveyard, plays for free. I don't know if I really like this card at all. When I was taking notes on this, and I said to myself, not sure what to think of this yet. Way too easy to remove. Yeah, sure, you can play it for free. I really don't think I like this card. I mean, he's a 6 casting cost, double threshold flyer with speed, but he's got 2 on the back end. I mean, that's just a burn, and he's done. So I don't like him. Granted, you can play him for a lot cheaper than 6, and then you can pull him back out of your graveyard for removing 6 action cards. So 6 action cards, that really kind of limits him if he's going to be in draft at all. If you get him in draft, will you be able to pull him back out? Yeah, that's kind of tough to say, because draft is all about wanting to have creatures and something on the battlefield and whatnot. Sealed, maybe. I don't think this guy's going to be constructed worthy at all. He's just too much, and he's too weak. Granted, he's got pretty cool card abilities, but yeah, he's just not my cup of tea. Let's put it that way. The next one here we have is Quash Ridge Tusker. So he is going to be here. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Quash Ridge Tusker. 1 casting cost, single ruby threshold. He's an 0/1. He's got Rage 1. It says when this attacks, another target attacking troop gets plus attack equal to this troop's attack this turn. So this goes in pretty well with, like, you got like a Ridge Raider, and then you have the card from Shattered Destiny that when you lay a resource deals 1 damage. No, that's not the one. I forget his name. I forget the name of those cards. I always forget the name of the cards. Anyway, okay, card. I think this will combine very well with anything that is in your orc deck. Anything that pumps orcs, I think this will work very well. So if you go into this guy and you can pump him up to 1 or 2, and then he gets Rage 1 on top of that. I think this is a fine card in limited for sure. These one drop 1 cards in constructed can sometimes be okay, but they're not the best. But you know, if you're making your deck completely around orcs, maybe you're going to have something there. Next one we have here is Soul of Battle. Soul of Battle is a 2 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, quick action, and it says target troop you control gets crush. This deals double damage, and at the end of your turn, sacrifice this. So I think this is a pretty good card. It's a game finisher card for sure. You know, if you want to give something, like say you got let's just say you have a troop on the field that is, you know, a 6/4. Let's just put it that. Let's say we got 6/2. Let's say we got the Sunsoul Phoenix out there first, and it's happened to remain alive yet. Nobody's burned it away. So and then your opponent has a 4 cost flyer on the, or a 4 attack or 4 defense flyer on the field as well, and you want to throw this down here, you know, give him double damage and crush. I believe this would be a good game finisher card. Nothing really to write home about, but I think it's going to be a fairly decent card in all formats. Next one here is Ashwood Maestro. It's a 2 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, it's a 3/1. It says at the start of each champion's turn they gain 2 temporary resources, or 2 resources they can use. These kinds of cards I just don't like. Okay, if this was a quick troop, I would say yes, but this is not a quick troop, so it's just like Fullman's. God, what is that card? Where each champion draws an additional card. Fullman's celebration or something like that. It's where your opponent gets to benefit from the card before you do. So I'm not a particularly big fan of this card just because of that. Two additional resource points early on in the game can be detrimental. It can give your opponent a huge momentum gain, and we don't want to do that. So I don't like this card at all for that fact there. And when it's a 3/1 and it's easily removed by Bombsmith, so not a big fan. Next one we got here is Highlands Black Belt. And where are you at? E, F, H, right there. Highlands Black Belt, 2 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold. It's a 2/1. It's a human warrior. And it has a 1-shot on it for 2 resources. You can choose one: Sting of the Manticore, Wings of the Phoenix, or Breath of the Dragon. Now, when was it this card? This had a lot more text on it at one point in time. It had a lot more descriptive text. I think they've changed that a little bit there. So I don't actually remember what they all were anymore. But you can choose one. At the Sting of the Manticore, I think that was like deal its attack to a target troop or champion. Wings of the Phoenix was give it flight, and Breath of the Dragon, I don't remember them anymore. I'm really confused on why they took all the card text off of there. Granted, it was hard to read, but some of you probably may or may not know that. Hopefully, maybe I can find a picture of that and post it somewhere that way, next to it somewhere. I don't know, so we'll do that. So anyway, decent limited card. I don't think that'll find much play in Constructed at all. Next one here is Pyre. And that particular card here is a 3 casting cost, 2 ruby threshold constant. It says that when an opposing champion draws a card, deal 1 damage to that champion. Okay, this could be good. It says I like this card. You get 2 or 3 of these out. Sure, that doesn't make sense, but sure does that make sense? I'm trying to read my notes here. There we go. Paired with Cerebral Fulmination. That's the card I was talking about. You might make sense. You could do stuff with this card by making your opponent draw cards, but would you really want to? Basically what my thoughts were on that. Would you really want to? Is this card really something? I'll tell you what, if I open this card and I'm in draft or limited, it's probably not going to be something I put in my main deck. Now, if I come up against an opponent that has a lot of card draw, then I'll probably sideboard this in. But outside of that, this is going to sit there and never see play from me at all. This is just one of those cards that you might sideboard in. And in Constructed, this probably will rarely see any play because you're not going to anticipate that your opponent's going to draw a lot of cards. I take that back. You can, because there are certain tier 1 decks out there that do draw a lot of cards. Maybe this could be a killer to that. But are you, so maybe that's what they're thinking, to the Cerulean Mirror Knight deck, the CMK deck. Maybe that's why this is there. I don't know. I don't like it, but maybe it is a stopper to that one. Next one we here have is Yancey of Terror. 3 casting costs, 1 ruby threshold, it's a 2/3 troop. It's a dwarf cleric. It is unique though. It says if Yancey dealt damage to an opposing champion this turn for 4 resources, create a Murdertron and put it into play. Now, a Murdertron, I don't have a picture of it right now, but a Murdertron is a 4/4 with Rage 2, Crush, and Swift Strike. That isn't bad. Granted, this guy, he has 3 casting costs, so it won't take a whole heck of a lot to get him out. If you pair him with Halloween Brave and the elf that gives you, what is that one called? Ashwood Maestro? No, Ashwood Soloist. Pair him with Halloween Brave and Ashwood Soloist. Maybe you could get him out on turn 2. And do damage with him, on turn 3, maybe, and then you can create, but then you're still going to have to wait to get that 4 resources to create a Murdertron. Granted, the Murdertron, I think, is a pretty cool card. If it's at 4/4, Rage 2 with Swift Strike, so he's going to be, if you attack, he's going to be a 6/4 with Swift Strike. This card here, unfortunately, it is unique, so you can't you can't get more of him out there to get more Murdertrons out, but you can, every time he attacks, create a Murdertron. Sweet card in Limited. Constructed, I'm not sure yet. Next one here is Duplicious Duke. And Duplicious Duke is a 4 casting cost, double ruby threshold, 2/2 Neurotic Warlock troop. And its card text is, at the start of your combat phase, this gets must attack. Create a copy of this and put it into play. It gets speed, and when combat ends, void this. So what the cool thing about this card is you can actually shift that ability onto something else. So if you have some other badass troop out in the field there, you can shift that ability onto that troop, and it's going to get must attack, and it creates a copy of itself, which is also going to attack because it's going to get speed. Yeah, I think this is an all-around pretty solid card. Almost any card, in my opinion, is draft worthy or limited play worthy, just because you have limited cards. So, and when I say if this is going to be constructed worthy, I don't mean like you can't play the constructed at all. I'm talking about, tier 1, tier 1.5, tier 2 worthy. So I mean, just because I say, oh, this isn't constructed worthy, doesn't mean you can't play it in a constructed deck. That's what I'm meaning by that. I don't think I've been very clear on that one there. So this one very well. Oh, look what I did. I moved my mouse. So this one here very well could find its way into constructed. I wouldn't see that not happening. Just because there's going to be a few more ways to get some bigger troops out a little bit quicker, even though he has 4 cost double threshold, not a huge deal. Again, this one here paired with, paired with Wild Shard, I don't see him being that bad at all. My notes said here, really nice card. I think this might find its way into constructed. Shift ability is something that, shift this ability onto something that can't be blocked. That would be even better. That's what I said there. Shift the ability onto something that can't be blocked. So maybe you pair this in with some type of a blood deck, onto a troop that can only be blocked by blood or artifacts. You might have something there. Next one we have here is Tribal Warfare. Tribal Warfare. 5 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, quick action. Target troop you control and all troops you control that share a trait with it gets. You can exhaust this and deals damage equal to its attack to another target troop this turn. I like the ability. cost is a bit much, but perfect card in sealed. Having this card in draft, you might be able to get 1 or 2 year troops to be able to do that. I think this is a really very spectacular card in sealed, because in sealed you can definitely play around, you know, certain cards that all share same trait, so share a trait. So I think this is more of a sealed card. Can be a constructed card, because obviously you can construct your deck around that. You know, if you construct your deck around Necrotics or whatever, it'd be a pretty good card too. And given that as a quick action, you know, why not? So like I said, sealed for sure. Draft, I'm not so much sure about, you know, draft, but you know, that's okay. Next one here we have a Zakir Swim. Zakir Swim is a 5 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, quick action, socketable major. You know, I always looked at Zakir and Zakir Swim and these cards here, and I'm like, that dragon reminds me of something, and I finally remembered or figured out what it reminds me of. If you ever seen Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen, the part where the one Transformer takes all these other little Transformers and puts them together and creates one big Transformer out of it, and it's got the red face and the green eyes. That's what Zakir reminds me of, is that guy there. He sucks all the stuff in. So that's what Zakir reminds me of. Anyway, socketable major quick actions. His target troop transforms into a random troop with all socketed powers of this. Horrible card. You know, it's a fun card to play with, but definitely not something that I would want to do, because if you were going to transform into a random troop, it could be anything, and it might be something, at worst case scenario, be a Honeycap, and you're not playing wild, then Honeycap's going to come into play and die immediately. So like I said, fun card to play around with. Nothing to take, you know, too seriously. Next one we have is Charkh, Hired Horn Elite. He is right here. He's a 5 casting cost, single ruby threshold, 6/6 troop with Rage 3. It says at the end of your turn, if you have any resource points, a random opposing champion gains control of this card. So first time you play him, you're probably going to have no resources left, and you'll be all right. Granted, he does not have speed, so that's fine. So you're going to get back. Obviously going to get your turn back. You can hopefully swing with him. He's going to be a 9/6. Be sure to spend all the points you can to try to either protect him or do something else, because you don't really want to give this guy up. Because it doesn't say, you know, revert in a random opposing champion gains control of him. It just says a random opposing champion gains control of him. So if you ever already swung with him one time, he's going to be a 9/6. That guy's going to get him. He's going to be untapped 9/6. So either you want to use this as a finisher, or make sure you have no resource points left over. So using this guy in conjunction of a sun sight, is that right? Is that the right one? Sight of the sun to replenish your resource points? Not a good idea. Next one we have here is Sunsoul Gore. Gore what? What is that called? Gorecaster. Sunsoul Gorecaster, 7 casting cost, double ruby threshold, 4/6 troop with flight. It is an orc, so it fits in the orc deck. I'm really excited about the orc deck. It says when a champion is dealt non-combat damage, create a Scarlet Raider for each damage dealt and put them into play. If you want to play around this card here, I think it'd be pretty good, but it's going to take a lot to get it out. You have to get it out early in order to take advantage of that particular ability there. You know, obviously this is they're taunting this to be in a burn deck of some sort, where you're dealing, you know, rage fire damage or burn damage or boomsmith or bombsmith damage, and create the Scarlet Raiders for each damage dealt. Now, if you have rage fire cycled a few times, you know, rage fire deals 6 damage. This guy's out on the table. You're going to create, you know, 6 Scarlet Raiders. Granted, they're only 1/1s, but you know, you're going to have something. This is kind of just like a more win card. You know, if you have this out already and you're doing that, and you know you have enough stuff to create a lot of Scarlet Raiders, it's, you know, it's going to be a game finisher, if not a more win card in limited. Don't foresee this one making too much of an impact on standard. So now on to the uncommon cards. The first one we have here is Flamehand Invoker. And Flamehand Invoker is a 2 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, a 2/1 troop, is another necrotic. It says once per turn for X, this gets X attack this turn. You can actually take that and shift it onto another target troop that you control. Actually, it doesn't even say that. It says once per turn, this you can shift it to somewhere. Doesn't have to be a troop you control. I guess you give it to your opponent if you want to, and they get that same ability. Decent. I think this particular card here is definitely going to find its way not only in limited, but I could see, you know, this finding its way into, you know, the necrotic deck or just anything. You know, I mean, it's a 2-cost, 1 threshold. It's a splashable card. Granted, it's easily removed, you know, since it's only got 1 toughness, but you know, it's got a great ability shifted onto something else. So I could see it in constructed, like I said. You know, whether or not it will make an impact on constructed, I don't know. But other than that, you know, super draft limited card. Next one we have on deck is, or at the plate, if you want. I don't know if that's a baseball analogy. I'm not a big baseball fan, but anyway, playing with fire. 3 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold constant, and says when you play a card with cost 5 or greater, deal 2 damage to target champion or troop. I'm not a real big fan of the cards that say play a card with 5 cost or greater. Except, you know, I mean, this card is screaming pair me with wild, you know, to get the Puck the Dreamer and Eye of Creation and Eye of Pupil, you know, so it's screaming, you know, pair me with wild. But I think it would work well, you know, if you were able to do that. Sealed draft, maybe. Granted, it would work in constructed, but you know, we're talking about casting troops with 5 cost or greater. Well, it doesn't say troops; it says a card with 5 cost or greater. So in constructed, I don't think this is going to make that big of an impact. And my notes here say this wants to be a good card. Where does it fit? Okay, a wild deck with Puck. Not that good in draft. Sealed maybe. Wants to be a constructed card, but not sure it will make it there. Those were my notes from a few days ago. Next one we got here is Ashwood Blade Master. 3 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, 2/1 troop, is an elf. It has Swift Strike, and for 3 resources, elves you control get +1 attack. So with all the elves that have come out with Armies of Myth, I think this could definitely make an impact in draft. It's going to be, I think elves are definitely going to be a draft archetype. Whether or not we see those in constructed play or not, that remains to be seen. I think they could, if done right, but you know, it's gonna be a Ruby Wild deck. I think that's the only place elves live right now is Ruby Wild. And we all know that that Wild has not been that great of a shard in constructed, so maybe they're trying to push Wild a little bit more by pairing it with Ruby, since Ruby Sapphire is one of the most top played colors in constructed as of yet today, for the 2 sets we have out right now. So all in all, good card in, you know, do you want to call it a good card? I mean, it's 3 cost, 2/1 with Swift Strike. I don't know if you even want to call it a good card. For some reason, my notes here are called super good card if you're building an elf deck. There you go. I could see this in all formats. Maybe. Next one we have here is Veteran Raider. Veteran Raider is a 3 casting cost, 2 ruby threshold, 3/2 with its 1-shot ability. For 1 resource, create a Scarless Raider and put it into play. Not that great of a ability at all, because I'm for certain that a Scarless Raider is a 1/1 troop. Hopefully I'm not wrong there. Another orc for the orc build, limited card for sure. Next one we got here is Flaring Passion. Flaring Passions. 4 casting cost, double ruby threshold to basic action. It says gain control of a target opposing troop, ready it, and it gets speed, and at the end of a turn, a random opposing champion gains control of this turn. So this is a super card in draft. Basically, you can drop this, take control of something on your turn, attack with it, and then you may get lucky and you might be able to keep it, and you might not. So if you don't get to keep it and it dies, no big deal. You got rid of a troop on the opponent's side. If they get it back, you know, so be it. Maybe you got some damage through. Hopefully they didn't chump block it with something that it didn't die. Hopefully they chump block it with something that kills it and they don't get it back at all. So decent card in limited play for sure. Next one here we have is Bombride. Bombride is at 4 casting cost, double ruby threshold, 1/2 troop. It's a dwarf mage, and its ability is you can exhaust this, deal 1 damage to target champion or troop. This is a horrible card. You know, I have written down here, not good. 4 cost, double threshold, 1/2, deals 1 damage. I'll pass on that one. I might take it if it's like the last card in the pack that I have to pick. Granted, it is a dwarf. You could use it for that. You know, exhaust a dwarf or a robot. But really, for 4, 2, no. Not me. Next one here we have is Twisted Taunter. Twisted Taunter is a 5 casting cost, double ruby threshold, 7/2 troop. It's a goblin. It's a defensive card. It says when this enters play, target opposing troop must attack until the start of your next turn. So you could use this to force your opponent to attack with something so you can kill it. Or you could... No, you couldn't do that because that's a different one. That's about all you can really do with this card. Yeah, my notes aren't much. Removal and limited. This is fine, sort of. Not much back end to it, so it's easily removed. I mean, this baby you could come into play, and once you pass the turn or pass the priority over to your opponent, they might just kick its ass with a burn or a rage fire or something, and then you're done. So I'd be wary to play this card. Maybe they'll see it as not really much of a threat, but I doubt it. So this card I don't think is that great at all. Next one we have here is Mechanica. Wow. Let me pull the card up here. Mechanized. It's like mechanicized Demolisher. Say it that way. Not mechanicized Demolisher. 7 cost, double ruby threshold, 6/4 troop, dwarf, and robot. So it's both. It says when this enters play, create 2 demolitions and put them into your hand. Demolitions, if you guys aren't familiar with demolition, I believe demolition is the one that destroys resources for your opponent. I think it destroys 1 and 1, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's more than that. But anyway, if your opponent has 6 resources, if he has 6/6 up, he didn't spend any or something like that, it's your turn. It's going to go to 5/5. If he has 0/6, it's going to go to 0/5, obviously. So it just takes away resources from your opponent just to slow them down. Outside of that, it's a pretty decent card in limited. It is a little expensive, so it's going to be really on the high end of the curve there. Not going to be a first pick or anything like that. This is going to be 23rd or 24th pick for sure. It's way down there. It's just something that's like, okay, maybe, chance of you be able to cast this. Whoops, what I did again? I went moving my mouse. Stop moving your mouse. Casting this, you're probably going to want to not spend cards to be able to cast this. You're not going to want to cast something that maybe gives you. Well, you can't even do that because I was forgetting it's going 3/3/3 draft. So maybe if you're attacking with the Ashwood Soloist, you can get it out a turn earlier. But all in all, I don't like this card. Moving on. Next one here we have is Vandalize. This is the first card we have in the commons. So when we get to the commons here, basically it's yay or nay for good or bad. So this one here is a 1 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, destroy target artifact. Yeah, I like this card. It's a good sideboard card. Nice way to remove artifacts. Sideboard card in all formats, I believe. Next one here, we briefly touched on the Ashwood Soloist. 1 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, 1/1. When it attacks, you gain 1 resource. So you can, on turn 2, you can have 3 resources. So you can get kind of a lead on your opponent there. Get a little bit ahead. So I like that card. I think it'll be a fine card, fine 1-drop in limited play for sure. Next one here we have is Deadeye Ripper, and he is right here. 1 casting cost again, 1 ruby threshold, 1/1. He's got speed, so it's like a baby Yeti, but he's a little better than a baby Yeti because you can shift something onto another card with speed. So he's a better baby Yeti. Next one here we have is Fiery Indignation. Where did he go? Fiery Indignation. I should say, where did she go? 2 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, basic action. Says deal 2 damage to target troop. If you control a card with cost 5 or greater, deal additional 3 damage to that troop. So it's very situational. Not going to be one of the first picks that I'm gonna get, unless maybe we're doing that high cost wild deck, which probably you're not going to do too whole heck of a lot maybe in draft. Maybe you will, if you can hang in there. But if that, yeah, sure, you can get rid of something with 5 toughness for a mere 2 resources, but you got to be able to set it up far before that. Next one here we have is Lunge. I think this here is a fine combat trick. It's a 2 casting cost, single ruby threshold quick action. It says target troop gets +2 attack and swift strike. So definitely a fine combat trick. This is fine in all formats. Just to give a troop swift strike. Swift strike is pretty difficult to deal with sometimes, so I like this card all around. Next one we have is Death Mask Assailant. So Death Mask Assailant is a 2 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, 2/1 troop. Another necrotic here, and it says this can't be blocked by troops with attack less than this troop's attack, and then you can shift that same ability onto something else. This ability, I think, is awesome, because if you shift this onto a troop that is a 4, 5, 6 attack, there's not much that's going to be able to block that, especially in limited. I think this is a fine card in limited all day long. I think this might be something we see used quite a bit. If you can't block something because my attack is less than your attack, hopefully that's just one troop, so you can't like combine troops, but I think this is a fine card all day long in limited. Next one we have here is Amberleaf Duelist. Amberleaf Duelist is a 2 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, 2/1 troop. It's another elf, and it says while this is attacking, it has swift strike. The only other troop that we have like that when it attacks has swift strike is the Killipede. So it's nice to see something like that. Maybe your opponent will forget. Maybe you're running trying to do the elf dream deck, and you have it pumped up or whatever it is. So it's okay. 2 casting cost, 2/1. So blocking with it, is kind of a crappy, but attacking with it, I don't see that as being a problem. See, what are my notes? I have a lot of notes on this particular card here. Let's read them. Swift strike while attacking is all right. Only other card, like I said, is the Killipedia, I think. Decent 2-drop, bound for limited. Can't even read my own writing. Unless you try for the elf deck, which may be a thing. Those are my notes. So next one here we have is Volibear Bashir. I think that's how you pronounce that one. Volibear Bashir, 2 casting cost, single ruby threshold, and 03, and he's a Volibear. Okay. When this attacks, it gets +1 attack for each attacking troop this turn. This could be something in the Bunnies deck. You have a lot of troops, the 01 troops, even though they have, 0 attack, you can actually still attack with them. So could you use those in conjunction with this one to pump him up? I think you probably could, because they will be attacking. Granted, they're not going to do any damage, but you could attack with them to pump this guy up here. So I think this could be a pretty good card. I think that this card will probably be pretty underrated, in my opinion. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'd be curious to see. I'm going to go back. After the set releases, we'll play with the set a little bit. Then we'll go back. I'll look at these videos and say, oh yeah, geez, I was way off there. Or, yep, I was right on there. So it'll be interesting. Next card we have up here is First Blood. This one always reminds me of Rambo, just because of the name, not because of the art. But anyway, 3 casting cost, single ruby threshold, basic action. Create 2 Scarlet Raiders and put them into play. Spending 3 to create 2 1/1s, so 3 cost, 2/2. No, I don't think so. Granted, the Scarlet Raiders are orcs, so you could have cards in the field where other orcs have, +1/+0, or +1/+1. So, you know, there could be something to that, but it's, you know, again, one of those situational cards where it may or may not be that great. And it'd be even better if that was a quick action, you know. But if it was a quick action, it would probably be 4 cost, or it would be 3 cost, double ruby, you know. So next one we have on here is Skewer. Skewer is a 3 casting cost, double ruby threshold, quick action. It says deal 3 damage to target troop. If it has 1 defense or less, deal 3 damage to that troop's controller. So what are we actually trying to do here? We're going to deal 3 damage to a troop. So this is, what is it? This is like an anti-burn card, you know? So because a lot of the aggressive cards have, you know, 1 health. So then we deal 3 damage to the controller too. So this, given this is common, maybe they're trying to push a little bit more towards you know, try to get, I don't know exactly what they're trying to do. You know, I have no idea. But, you know, great card against a, you know, an X1 troop for sure, because you're going to get an additional 3 damage to the actual champion. Next one we have is Scraptooth Crackler. Scraptooth Crackler is, where'd you go? There you are. 3/1, single ruby threshold, 4/1 troop, a knoll. Again, another type or traits or whatever you want to call them. Can't remember what they're called. Anyway, another one that we haven't seen before, Knoll. This is a 3 casting cost, 4/1 with no card text. I think I wrote down probably garbage. Where's it at? 4/1 for 3. Yeah, I did. I wrote 4/1 for 3, garbage. This is going to be last pick and draft every time. Nobody's probably going to play this one because it doesn't synergize with any of the traits, so garbage. It's like, we need a card. Let's build this one. Next one we here have is Staggering Blast. 4 casting cost, single ruby, basic action. Deal 1 damage to each opposing troop without flight. Damaged troops without flight get this, can't block this turn. So this is kind of like a menacing Grolk in a way. 4 cards that have flight, without flight. In a way. So I could see this card being played really in any format, I think, you know, because menacing Grolk, well, I guess I shouldn't say menacing Grolk's played a lot because it costs so much, and I think it's double sapphire. But anyway, they can't block. I mean, granted, menacing Grolk exhausts them and they can't ready, but this they can't block. So maybe you can drop this in a limited format just to get through the damage you need to finish the game. Next one we have is Boomsmith. Boomsmith, 4 casting cost, 2/1 dwarf mage. When it enters play, deal 2 damage to target opposing troop. Decent. I still think Bombsmith is better. My personal opinion. Bombsmith is way cheaper. I mean, granted, he's a 1/1. This is only a 2/1 and deals 2 damage when he comes into play. Yeah, Bombsmith is still better. And they don't even have the flavor text that's supposed to be on him. Next one here is Pyronite, and he is a 4 casting cost, single ruby threshold, 3/2 troop. He is a human. So when this enters play, troops you control get +1 attack this turn. So if you pair this guy with a human deck, maybe your humans are already buffed, pull this guy out, put him down. They also get a little buff this turn. Why not? Solid draft, limited, sealed card. Oh, we have next here, Ember Tears. Ember Tears is a 5 casting cost, double ruby threshold, constant. It says when this enters play, deal 3 damage to each opposing champion. At the start of your turn, deal 1 damage to each opposing champion. So this, I have this written down, it's kind of like a turreted wall. I think maybe it's a little better since it's a little bit more difficult to remove this. Granted, turreted wall is an artifact that's only 4 to get out. This one's 5 and double threshold. But this one does damage when it comes into play, and also does damage at the start of your turn like turreted wall. So I think it's a better turreted wall and a little more difficult to remove. Next one we have here is Volley of Arrows. Volley of Arrows is a 5 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold, quick action, deal 1 damage to target champion or troop for each troop you control. Again, maybe pair this with a token deck where you have just a ton of bunnies out there or something. You know, cast it, throw this down, and let's just say you have freaking 10 troops out in the field, but most of them are 0-1s, or maybe they're 1-1 worker bots, or whatever they may be. You know, deal 10 damage to a champion or a troop. Be nice if you could divide that up. That would be sweet. But I think it's a decent card, solid card all around if you have that going on. What do we have next here? We have Amberleaf War Dancer. And she is, without even looking at the trait, you could tell she's an elf just because she's crazy looking and she's green. But anyway, 5 casting cost, 1 ruby threshold. She's a 4/3 elf warrior troop. She has Crush. Her one-shot ability is absolutely awful. 7 resources. This gets +2/+2. No. So basically, for 12 resources, you'd have a 6/5 with Crush. I'll pass. Not that great of a card. Ridiculous. But other than that, if you don't... Oh, man, where'd I go? Here we go. If you don't activate the one-shot, which, you know, in limited you might eventually be able to, and, you know, do it, but outside of that, you know, she's a 4/3 for 5. Not horrible. It's out of, you know, most burn range, you know, most range of, you know, let me get rid of you with like a burn spell, but obviously, you know, it's going to die to removal. Like I said, you know my thoughts about die to removal, because everything can die to removal other than artifacts. Well, artifacts still can, but... Last card, but not least, is Furyseeker. Furyseeker is a 6 casting cost, double ruby threshold. He's a 4/4 with rage 1 and speed, and he's an orc. So we have the card out that pumps your orcs. He's going to be a 5, maybe a 5/5. He's got speed. He goes rage 1, so he's going to be a 6/5. Maybe he pumps him even further, so maybe he'd be a 7. It's going to be one of those cards that's going to be, you know, top of your curve, end of the game, late game. You know, you drop this guy. Hopefully you have it set up. You know, maybe you can get him out earlier. But it fits very well with the orc deck, and I'm not going to complain about that. It's a solid card and limited for sure. Constructed, you know, that's remained to be seen. So those are my thoughts and opinions on the ruby color or the ruby shard in Armies of Myth. Next we're going to be doing Sapphire. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Ruby. Do you have a favorite card? What do you think about the elves? Do you think the elves are going to be something? Do you think orcs could possibly be something? I think either or both could definitely be a draft archetype. I don't foresee that not being something that people are going to try. So anyway, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of the set reviews or the HEX update Saturdays or all the other content I do on this channel, be sure to click subscribe down below, and we'll have another video for you soon.